desperate attempt to fill 24 hours of programming, here's some bullshit that happened somewhere today. We've got some footage here of the bullshit, which began just after 3 o'clock this afternoon, when residents in this neighborhood were shocked to see this fairly common thing happening. An attractive witness described the event in breathless terms.
I went to my window and I was like, whoa, there's some bullshit happening.
That happened right over there. I'm an older man, so you can trust what I say.
Who disrupts my coronation? Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame death party!
What's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I'm buried under several feet of snow. If you live in Southern Ontario, I'm joined by my co-host and fellow person snowed in Snowmageddon.
Alex the producer, and yeah, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, except that because it's kind of melty, it's made conditions kind of crappy.
Yeah, like this was a wild weekend. Now, to kind of paint the scene, there was a really bad storm that I think came out of California and Texas, which made its way up through Canada this past weekend. We had thunder snow, and I've only experienced that like once in my life. So I'm sitting here in my living room watching TV with my wife, and we see this flash outside, and we thought, did somebody hit a transformer? Was that like a snow removal vehicle going by? No. And then we just hear this boom, and we're like, well, that's not good. And then we started going to, there's this thing called Ontario Storm Watch, and they're like, yeah, you guys may want to plug in your stuff because we were under winter storm warning for this. So me and Blair, we plugged in all our devices. We heard the thunder snow for about 20 minutes or so, and the snow was just coming down in buckets. Like, Alex, you've been to my kind of parking lot. Yep. Going down the middle, coming towards our lot, that snow was 4 feet deep at one point.
Sure. And that's the thing. Like it said, I think Kitchener and like this region and then your region got somewhere between 12 and 16 inches, but it's not like it's even distribution. When they say that, that's covering the whole area on average, meaning certain areas of town might have got 30 inches and then other areas might have got like 4, right? Like that's how it works. So like in my area, we got about 1.5 feet.
Yeah. You guys got it bad at like one point. And so Blair
and sorry, for some people are like, that's not a ton of snow. That's a lot of snow
in 24 hours.
Yeah, it was from about 7 p.m. I think it started here
until 7 a.m.
Here it went till about 3 a.m. But it was so intense at points where it was like 2 inches an hour, 2.5 inches an hour.
Like I had ordered something via Skip the kind of dishes, and they were calling drivers off the road, and I was supposed to go volunteer for one of the things that I do on the Saturday morning. I called the cab company to cancel because there was no way I could safely get into my parking lot because someone would have to shovel it out and clear it out for my wheelchair to move. And the cab driver says like, yeah, I'm pulling my guys off the road like right now, unless it's like emergency medical stuff. No one's going out there. And yet kids were still calling the cab company to go to the bar.
Well, because my opinion on, well, first of all, my opinion on your city, their university education,
yeah,
in quotes,
their party culture.
There is a running joke amongst a lot of Southwestern Ontario that's, Well, if you can't get into university or college, or community college, you can still go to Guelph. And that's the party school, and everybody rolls their eyes.
See, I always thought that was Fanshawe, which was called Funshawe.
That's for community colleges. If you can't get into Guelph, you go there.
Oh, okay.
No, but it's just known that Guelph is a okay school.
Mhm.
Like every university is okay. Let's be real. Every university has its good parts. It's just Guelph doesn't specialize in anything other than people knowing that it's a party school. And what does that tell you?
I would say Guelph specializes in its veterinary sciences.
Yes,
we're called
yes.
Moo.
Yeah, there's that. Like, there's always one or two, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's you will never hear Guelph pulled up on the list of top 10 universities in Canada. It's never on that list. It's on the list of best party schools and and what does that mean though? That means people puking in the streets. You know my history with thinking how disgusting Guelph is, where they actually employ, this is a legit thing. The city employs street cleaners to clean the barf up after every weekend during the school year.
Gross.
Because it's just known that the students will pee and barf all over the roads.
I found the University of Guelph. We are in the top 20. Sorry.
Okay, you're in the top 20 out of what? 20?
Out of 42.
Okay,
I was curious.
But like legitimately, I know you love your city. Your city is the only city I've heard of ever that has permanent crew that their entire job is just to clean up barf.
Yeah, I haven't been downtown on those particular weekends, so I really can't speak to
don't.
that.
I was going to say just don't, because, and it's like, it's not me being snobbish. Like, we have 2 universities in my city, and that never happens, not even once. And when I say not even once, I mean,
I don't know.
ever.
You did have riot cops at one thing a couple years ago.
It's that one house party that happens every single year.
Yeah, where it closes off a couple of streets. Yeah,
that house party, and even then, guess what? They never have to bring up people to sweep up the barf.
This is true.
University of Toronto, UT, Ryerson, all the Toronto, they don't have permanent barf sweepers. Guelph does. So that's like, Guelph's university is like the Florida of here when it comes to drinking culture. So that's my issue with that.
I don't know. Like I said, me and the university, I've had nothing but a good experience. So.
Oh no, there's plenty. They put on plenty of good programs, and they do great, activities and like they do all the great things that universities do. I don't like the students that go there. The traditional student culture. Now that's just me. When I've gone years and years and years ago, with friends, we're like, hey, let's go grab a bite to eat, later at night. Yeah, you can't, because the restaurants are open till 4 a.m. in some areas, and you know what they do? They barricade the bathrooms. You're not allowed to use their bathrooms, which is, I thought, illegal, but
news to me.
Oh yeah.
I'm trying to think of what else has happened this week.
So, sorry for my irrational hate of night culture of the university there.
Say, other than that,
and we're not talking rush week. This is like all the time. So anyway.
Anyway, though, trying to think what else has happened this week. There hasn't been any hockey this week. My team was on the road, so they haven't really been doing a whole lot. I've been playing a lot of Pokemon Go with Blair, which is actually kind of exciting. I was talking with friend of the show, Jen, aka Jelly Swirl. Jen McMyler always is a very big friend of the show. She does a lot of our artwork. It looks like she's going to come up for a Pokemon Com Day sometime in the spring, which is where there's like a featured kind of Pokemon, takes place over the course of like a weekend. Me and her have been lucky friends for a while, so we're looking forward to doing that trade that in theory should never happen. If someone lives far away, you don't get a chance to trade with them that often, so it'll be nice to quote unquote get the band back together. We haven't seen Jen since COVID started. So it's been like 2 years.
3 more than that.
Yeah. So she's,
because COVID is now,
3 years.
I think, officially, what day was it? Was it the
March
20th? It's gonna, if we go to the 20th, that'll be 3 years.
Yeah, so that's going to be wild. I mean, it'll be nice to see Jen. She's got all these sugar-free things for us, because up here in Canada, we don't get all the cool things that the United States gets.
See, it's squandered on the Americans. They, the country with the most obese people and the most diabetes and people that refuse to even eat sugar-free stuff have the most amount of availability of them, and then it's like everywhere else in the world we crave them and can't get them.
Yeah, it's so strange. I mean, for whatever reason, I guess it's just a larger market.
It's America. The point is they can have variety and then just burn them if they want to.
I
guess
guess
it's America.
I guess so. So yeah. Other than that, though, it's been pretty quiet. I've been playing Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic on the Switch. Not the best port in the world, but I like what Asper did, and they've added in the ability to cheat. So now I can just walk through the game, see the storyline that's been talked about for like 20 years. I gotta say, this is actually a lot of fun. It's kind of made me a bit of a Star Wars buff again.
I was positive you would have played it since it was BioWare and it was Star Wars, and the fact that you didn't blew my mind.
I played it on the computer when the game first came out, but because it's keyboard and mouse, I gave up, and I just never got any of the trainers to work properly.
So you never beat it?
No.
You never even knew what the story was going to be like?
I got through the first chunk of the first planet, and I'm thinking, fuck this. I hate playing games on PC. I know, blasphemous. And I just never got through it. And then it was on sale last week for like $5. I'm thinking, you know what? I got $5. And I just kind of went through it.
I'm surprised you never played it on Xbox or backwards compat.
I had it on Xbox. I know I've owned it multiple times. I just never sat down. So I kind of wanted to get into the mood for Star Wars, because now that Mando season 3's in full swing, fantastic first episode, by the way. I'm really glad that I'm back in the Star Wars. We've got Jedi Survivor coming out in April, so it'll be something to tide me over until I can get back into the world of Cal Kestis and whatnot. So that's been my week. What about you?
Let me think here. It's been mostly catching up on some review stuff, and I finished up my playthrough to 99% or so of Octopath Traveler 2. I'm stuck at a point where you have to beat like the super boss, and beating the super boss will ding the last couple of trophies I would need. But I'm not going to put in 20 more hours of grinding to get to the point where you can actually beat the super boss, because that's bad game design. There's balance issues with the game. At certain points where you're like, this is not working. And I've talked to a few people that are now starting to get to the part where I was, where they're like, yeah, there's balance issues here. And I'm sorry, if you have to have a very technical, very specific build and then spend 20 to 30 or 40 minutes beating a super boss, it's not fun. It's not fun to do that. And anybody that says it is, they just like the masochism of it. They like the pain, and I'm like, no. And that's something I've never liked about JRPGs. I don't like the grind. I like experiencing the story at a good pace. So I mean, I'm had a really good time with it overall. It's like an 8 out of 10 for me, maybe 8.5.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a 9 if they fix some of the balance issues and then fix the end game stuff, but they probably won't because there's people out there, I don't know why, that like that the way it is, but that's just, I guess to each their own. Beyond that, yeah, like I said, I've been catching up, because the last couple of weeks I was basically just doing Octopath. I caught up on The Last of Us. Ended up watching, like, was it 2 or 3 episodes in a row?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all caught up there. Watched Mando, like you said. I think it's setting up a pretty good season overall. I thought at the very beginning, where the I forget the name of the character, the one that like makes the armor.
The armor.
Is that what?
Yeah.
Does it not?
Yeah.
Does she not have a name?
No, she's just the armor.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought, I was positive she was making a little tiny helmet for him.
Yeah.
For Grogu, and I think that's what they're foreshadowing.
Mm-hmm. That's going to be the new thing that unites the people, will be Grogu. That's what I think it'll be, the big finale.
Like I think at the end of this, even if it's not the end of this season or at the end, maybe it'll be the next, but I just get this feeling that was a foreshadowing scene with the little ones. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to go into the living waters or whatever, come out, yada, yada, yada. What's going to happen. And what we're going to see is, even if he doesn't, like, he'll have a choice or something.
Mm-hmm.
and he won't be allowed to rejoin. And he'll be a Ronin forever, basically. But he's going to let the child join, and the scene we'll see is him having to go off on his own, or be like the old samurai leaving, and you're going to see Grogu with his helmet on, becoming one of the people.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fantastic where they're going to take this series, and I'm sure we'll talk about that because we haven't done a Star Wars show. So maybe at the end of Mandalorian season 3, we'll kind of look at the Star Wars universe report card on Future Imperfect. I think that'd be a really easy show for us to do.
Absolutely, and outside of that, it's just been us sort of watching Star Trek, and that's been it. I'm sort of caught up now. I'm playing some games for review, but not much else majorly new other than I'll be going to see Cocaine Bear tomorrow.
That I need to get around to seeing, so hopefully I'll get a chance to do that. I also need to watch Picard's newest episode. I'm only one episode behind, so I'll probably do that today.
Oh, that's the best episode they've ever done.
So I'm looking forward to it. That's what I've heard.
And I'm not being like sarcastic or like, that's the best one. No, I mean, it's like the best one they've ever done.
So we'll be talking about that on Future Imperfect really soon. So coming up on the show this week, we're going to be talking about The Last of Us. We're going to be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. We're going to be talking about some other cool stuff that happened. We also have reviews of Team Ninja's latest game, Wulong Fallen Dynasty, reviewed on the PlayStation 5. Alex, what do we got coming up from you?
Kirby.
And we also got something from our good old friend Ken from This Anime Podcast. So we got all that and more right here on This Week in Geek. And we're going to throw things over to Alex right now. And we'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Our friends over at Nintendo sent a review copy of Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe Edition. For the Nintendo Switch. This is the first time that I have played the title. I know this is a, deluxe remaster, and I think it's going to be the first time that a lot of people might have played it. As popular as Kirby has been in the past, the Switch is by far their most popular console. I would say even more than Wii. Now, I know that I think it might have passed it. If it hasn't, it's going to really soon. I think we're at the point now where the Switch is the most popular Nintendo console probably ever, just even in the public lexicon. And, pretty much anything that comes out that was from a previous console theirs that maybe didn't sell as well or might have been overlooked ends up with a boost in sales. I did read that this game sold in its first week, I think more than double in Japan alone, more than double its first week sales than it did initially, 10 years ago or more, whatever it was at this point. So, that's a sign in itself. And what we get here are, HD visual upgrades. It looks pretty darn good. I've been playing it both on my OLED in portable mode and in docked mode on a 1080p monitor. And it looks good both ways. It looks, honestly way better on my OLED Switch because those colors really pop. But this is your traditional Kirby, your 2D Kirby, left and right platforming with, some verticality involved. And more like Star Allies if you played that on the Switch. Now, they've added a bunch of stuff here. Like there's a game mode that happens after you beat the game where the main helper friend from this game, you have to play as that character in a series of more missions, which is always fun. As of this recording, I'm just starting that part there. But other than that, there is a ton of collectibles to find in each world. It's pretty standard Kirby fare. Each world is broken up into multiple levels. Each level has multiple secret items, somewhere between 3, 5, sometimes even more of these power cells that you pick up that are then going towards unlocking, extra special levels, challenge levels, rooms that give you power-ups in your home base. You also find little stamp tickets that you go into another world that's outside of the it's like a theme park. And inside of there, you can unlock even more stuff to do, as well as hats and masks and accessories. You can get the masks you can just wear as you're playing the level, and it will cover up Kirby's default face. And then if you are getting extra items. If you get stuck in an area or you lose a power that you need to go to a certain spot to get one of the secret items, you can pull up by pressing and holding X, you can pull up a menu. And if you've got certain items purchased or equipped from the bonus stages and bonus stuff, you can actually give that to yourself, like a gun that shoots that will blow up things to reveal areas that you need a power to get to if you're unpowered. Stuff like that. Pretty neat. The gimmick here with the Kirby game is certain enemies will give you like a supersized, superpowered version of that Kirby power. So let's say there's a sword power that you usually get. It's a standard power Kirby can get. You know, hit things with your sword. Well, if you get the superpowered one, when you use the sword, it does a superpowered version that can like cut down giant ropes or cut down huge enemies on the screen. And there's other ones that like fire like a fire dragon, or there's a whip that can whip across. And the idea is it will kill everything on the screen that it can find. It can also open up areas to go to, like warp zones to find some of the extra secret items. You know, really fun, inventive stuff that Kirby is known for. There is multiplayer in this, and that you can play with multiple friends on the same screen, which is something they're advertising as a feature, because the last couple Kirby games you weren't able to really do that. So adding that or having that functionality is something they're really pushing here. I'll have to actually have my brother or some people over to try out some of the multiplayer aspects. But, you know, overall, the performance is pretty good. It does tend to stutter when loading a new level or loading a new world. You'll see the frame rate drop to like 5 frames per second for like a moment when it's loading. And that's just a limitation of, you know, I have a really fast SD card in there, micro SD, but even if you have the cartridge, it's just a limitation of the storage hardware here. You know, once we go to another next generation of a Switch in the future at some point, I imagine that sort of thing will be fixed. It's not a problem with how the game was coded. I think it's just a limitation of the actual throughput that it can do. Visually and audibly, it's a fantastic Kirby game. It's smooth. There's no crashes. There's plenty of extras that they've added. A big feature that can help younger players or people that want to play a little more casually is you can turn on an easy mode here, and it gives you the prompt if you want to do it at the beginning of the game or not. It adds an extra life bar, so you have 2 life bars. It fixes pitfalls so that if you fall in a pit, you will be carried out of the pit and be able to carry on from where you were. And if you start to get really close to low health after your second life bar is almost gone, a helper friend can come out and it will drop you a small fruit or something to give you maybe 25 to 50% of your life back on 1 bar to give you a fighting chance. So you're not really going to be, at least in the main game, in jeopardy of being so frustrated that you lose. And again, you can turn that on or off. So that's always, you know, a good feature. As far as accessibility features, it doesn't really need any. The text is large. There's very little to actually read and do that way. It's vibrant. I don't see somebody who's maybe a certain type of colorblind. You'd have to let me know if there's any issues with it, but I don't see any of the colors clashing to the point where you'd have trouble playing it if you are colorblind, if that makes any sense. And it's just an overall fun romp that you can play. I was playing it the last few days, basically before bed, for an hour before bed each night, and just having an absolute blast with it. If you are already a Kirby fan and maybe even played the original version and you're thinking, you know, should I get this? It's a sizable upgrade, and I would say it's worth it. If you're somebody who's new to the genre, this is another good jumping point. You know, all 3 of the mainline, you know, fully priced Kirby games on the Switch are good entry points for anybody. But this is, I think, an even easier entry point than Star Allies or Forgotten Land. You can pick up and play pretty much right away, and it gives you a tutorial for the first mission or 2, first level or 2, showing you how to play everything, to the point where I don't think anybody could have a problem picking up, you know, like a little kid, my grandma, anybody can pick up and play this. And you know, we need more like this, like Yoshi. We need another Donkey Kong. But until we get more, you know, brand new titles from all these franchises, or a new Mario game, this is a good holdover, and it's going to be something that, you know, fills in my game playing gap until the spring and summertime, when we start to see the deluge of new titles coming out.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek.
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, producer. Well, it is time to talk about the things that happened this past week on the big blue marble we call Earth. And of course, we're going to start things off in the entertainment world. We're going to boldly go where no one has gone before. This story comes courtesy of Entertainment Weekly. Star Trek Discovery will end with Season 5. Sonequa Martin Green calls it, quote, a mind-blowing journey. I'm astoundingly blessed by God to have played Captain Michael Burnham and to have taken part in a legacy alongside an extraordinary cast, phenomenal crew, and remarkable writing team, says the series star. Quote, it is the end of an era within the Star Trek franchise as Star Trek Discovery is officially concluding with Season 5, which is getting an early 2024 premiere on Paramount+. In a lengthy statement to the press, series star Sonequa Martin Green, who plays Captain Michael Burnham, opened up about her time on Discovery. I can hardly believe that this mind-blowing journey with Star Trek Discovery is ending. Martin Green, who's also a producer, says, I'm astonishingly blessed by God to have played Captain Michael Burnham, to have taken part in a legacy alongside an extraordinary cast, phenomenal crew, and remarkable writing team. The actress thanks CBS Studios and Paramount Plus, who, quote, insisted on making television history. She also calls out showrunners Michelle Paradise and Alex Kurtzman and executive producers, including, I can't pronounce this name, I'm sorry, Olatunde Usumi, I think. Quote, I will never forget how it felt to stand together as a show family, cradling the heirloom of Star Trek with all those franchise at large and with the fan, the star says. The fans welcomed us into their hearts as we launched a new iteration of Trek and an entire entertainment platform, and we'll never forget it. 65 episodes later, here's to the company of Star Trek Discovery, to the show, its fifth and final season, to its beloved fans, to all those who envisioned a better future. Let's fly. And then it just goes into history of kind of Star Trek.
It's kind of interesting that they're trying to hype it up, but the reality is they're canceling it because it was so divisive amongst fans. And in 5 years, can you tell me what's actually happened in the show?
I can only tell you bits and pieces because I kind of tuned out at the end of season 3. I watched part of season 4 and I just didn't like it.
Okay, Aaron and I did our discussion on it, which we still have to put out. And I kept confusing season 3's plot with season 4 because I didn't know that they were different.
All I know is they go to the future and there's changelings and the burn.
Yeah, that's the third season.
Yeah, that's when I kind of tuned out.
I have no recollection of what season 4 was, and that's the most recent season. I tuned out completely after Burnham was hit with the ray gun that made her drunk.
Yeah,
and it was so hokey. And like, we're talking more hokey than a cartoon. And then everybody's still trying to praise it at that point. And it's like, I don't get it. I legitimately don't get why people would like it.
See, and to me, there were parts of it I thought worked. And I thought the ideas, some of them were actually kind of interesting. The fact that they got flung so far into the future. Okay, that's interesting. Now, what are you going to do with it? I thought the idea of the burn was, but not everybody uses dilithium, so the Romulans are fine. The Borg are fine.
And not to mention, like, when we get them for review, we try to go into it with as unbiased an opinion as possible. And there are elements that we end up always talking about, saying, yeah, this was pretty good. But each season always misses the mark for different reasons.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And like, what gets me is when I sit back and think critically and objectively about it, there's nothing in Discovery that on its own, if no Star Trek had existed before it, would make me go, this is a good show to watch.
I was more interested in more of the side characters than Michael Burnham's story. Like, for example, Anthony Rapp's character as, I think, Stamets, I think it is. Him, big fan of him. I really like that. Him and his husband, really like that story. I like Tilly. I don't like the direction they took her in later seasons, but okay, fine. Whatever happened to the guy who was the Klingon impersonator guy? Whatever happened to him? Oh,
they just went, forget he existed.
Okay. I never liked what they did with, like, I felt Saru could have been a bigger part. Like, him, I'm interested in. I like him. I don't want the Michael Burnham show. And it's nothing against her
this
either.
was the problem. This Star Trek discovering what? They never really discover anything. It like I know it sounds really cynical, but like nothing really ever gets done. It's the same every season is the big MacGuffin. What's the big mystery? But then the big mystery ends up being something either incredibly stupid or incredibly offensive. I don't know how they got away with was the burn, the burn, right?
Yeah.
That whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
That it was literally some
temper tantrum,
mentally handicapped, neurodivergent man child threw a temper tantrum and blew up the universe because he wasn't getting the mental help he needed.
Yeah, that was a little
not great. And I'm trying to say it as nice a way as possible. They made it come across as very offensive. Like it was very, very offensive. And yet not a single journalist wrote about how offensive that was. It was about the praise of it's like I question how selective people were with reviews. And we were very, very upfront with how we thought of things. Like it wasn't just that it was an offensive thing for people that that are neurodivergent. It was that it was very poorly written to begin with. That particular, and I think that's where it dropped off. Now season 4 is going to be coming out on Blu-ray at some point, and we're going to get to review it. So coming back at it from a second stance, and also looking at it after like a year's time will be interesting when we do it, and maybe seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff if they include that. But it's all telling that it's ending. They're saying that they chose to end it, blah blah blah. No, they had a multi-season order, so of course they're doing it. They're just deciding not to do any more. But it's the fact that they're deciding to end it right after Strange New Worlds had like double the ratings and the best reviews for Star Trek writing since like I don't know 2004, as far as like universal praise. It says a lot. It says that they are now shifting it. They're shifting Strange New Worlds to be the flagship show,
which is fine with me. Like I think Strange New Worlds and Lower Decks are fantastic. I like that the Section 31 show should we'll probably start to hear more about that fairly soon. And that's what I mean. When things from Discovery are more interesting, like Captain Giorgio, I thought she was awesome. Like I thought that was great. And though when they randomly put her into the Mirror universe and the Guardian of Forever randomly shows up, and there were just parts of Discovery that just were a little messy, but the side characters were fantastic. I don't know, just it's nothing against Sonequa Green because I really liked her in The Walking Dead, and there are parts in Discovery where I think she's actually fairly fantastic. It's just
it's the
Michael Burnham show.
And when I say the direction too, there are talented directors, and it's not like they're just. I feel like a lot of it is, I guess that's good enough. Print it, move to the next scene.
Yeah, like
it's like the directors are looking at the scripts they received, the actors are looking at it, and they're like, really? Okay, do it like it's written, and then just like you know what I mean. Like I don't get the feel from that show at all that anybody is really trying hard. There's people that are hamming it up. There's people that are going over the top. I don't get a feel that anybody is, even in editing, trying hard enough to make it serious. And it comes across as like either over dramatic or they'll add tension when there isn't tension. Like they're trying to get the show done as economical as possible and not trying to make they're not trying to make a good show.
There were
comparatively.
There were things about Discovery that I think were really great, specifically the short treks. Some of those were really fantastic, especially the one with Mud.
And guess what? Those got canceled real fast when they decided that you and I swear you can I'll state my whatever credibility I have. They canceled it after the short treks were getting better reviews than the actual show.
I mean,
they were getting better reviews than the show that they were complimenting.
I mean, as Discovery comes to an end, I'd like to know what will its final season be about. I mean, they're still in the future as far as I understand. Are they going to get back to the main timeline? No. Probably not.
They can't because everything they've done has ruined the lore of the show. So they have to stay in the future where nobody's touching them.
Yeah, I guess they've kind of written themselves into a bubble where they can't be touched because they're in the 32nd century or something.
They've got to stay in an alternate timeline. It's the only way it's going to work.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Like, what are they going to do? Go back in time and blow themselves up so that nothing ever happened?
You know, that might be an interesting way to end it, saying the only way for us to preserve the future is if we never did what we did.
And then like they literally go back in time and instead of Burnham like causing the Klingon war, they blow themselves, they smash their ship into their ship and Giorgio and all of them blow up.
I don't know, like I kind of think of that whole like cause and effect thing, like
butterfly effect.
Yeah,
they're gonna go back in time and strangle themselves in the womb.
I don't think it'll go that far.
Which I'm sorry, spoiler. I know that could be triggering, but that's the plot of that movie.
Yeah,
is everything he does, everything Ashton Kutcher does,
it's
to try
bad.
To save people, it ends up making things worse, and it just keeps playing that Stain song. It's been a while, or whatever. What was that? Was it called? It's been a while. That was that one. The moody song they play, and every single time he screws something up, either his arm blows up or his girlfriend ends up going with her abusive father, and then his solution is, I'm going to go back in time and strangle myself with my umbilical cord, and that's how the movie ends, and you're like, what?
Yeah, man, it's been so long since I've seen that. In fact,
well, and I'll say one thing: that movie had one clever moment in it. Is they mentioned very early on, and it's a one-off. They don't even like
follow up on
it. They don't do anything to really foreshadow that or put it out there that hey, you should remember this.
Yeah.
But but they make mention that his mom had like 3 miscarriages before him.
Mm-hmm.
And then it brings in a question: did she miscarriage, or were all these children having the same power?
Wow, yeah.
And was their solution that they shouldn't exist?
Interesting. Like,
so I mean that's cool, but everything else in that movie is shit.
I know we're talking about doing a Future Imperfect about time travel, and maybe that's a movie I should cover. I kind of wouldn't mind watching those again.
You can watch it, but we're gonna rip it apart. It's not gonna be. It's not a good movie.
Yeah, well, it's also made in 2004, so whatever.
Yeah, and there's like sequels that are real bad.
So that's enough about that. So Star Trek Discovery, I guess we'll see how you end. Will you redeem yourself in your final season? Not likely, but you never know.
I really do hope. I do hope that for what it is, it gets a good send off. I do.
Yeah, like I want to go back and give it another whirl and see what happens.
I don't know if I ever want to see any of the characters again except for Saru, because every other character has been done dirty. Even the ones that you liked have been kind of meh.
So our next story involves what has arguably been called the best video game adaptation of all time so far. And this story comes courtesy of comicbook.com. The Last of Us breaks insane viewing record with just 5 episodes. HBO Max has another hit on their hands with the live action adaptation of the hit video game franchise, The Last of Us. The series quickly became the second biggest debut for an HBO series within the past 10 years. And excuse me, and has already been renewed for a second season. Previously, it was revealed that streaming numbers for the series outpaced Game of Thrones' House of the Dragon spinoff. Now it seems the series has broken another record. According to Nielsen via Deadline, The Last of Us has finally crossed 1 billion streaming minutes watched after the release of the 5th episode. The series crossed 1.2 billion minutes viewed as of the week of January 30th to February 5th. Craig Mazin, the Emmy-winning creator of HBO's Chernobyl series, produced The Last of Us alongside Druckmann, the creator behind the hit video game series. In an interview earlier this year, the writer said, "The Last of Us is the greatest video game story ever told. It's an open and shut case. This is the greatest story that has ever been told in video games. I don't know about that. Mason said in an interview with
says by somebody who probably plays very little video games.
Yes, Mason said in an interview with Empire Magazine, Joel and Ellie didn't shoot anything out of their eyeballs. They were just people, and in that. And that in and of itself is remarkably rare in games. The fact that they kept it so grounded really made you feel. I'd never experienced anything like it, and I've been playing video games since 1977. Joining Pascal and Ramsey include Gabriel Luna as Tommy, but then it just goes into the cast. The first 7 episodes are available on HBO Max. Now we're up to 9 episodes after last night. This is the last episode. It's going to be airing this week, episode 9. This series is incredible. I hope we don't have to wait Game of Thrones long to get the next season, but I don't know how they're going to get through the next episode without it feeling incredibly rushed.
Without going into details, no, it depends. If the next episode is like an hour and 20 minutes long,
then sure, yeah.
But it needs to. This episode that aired this week needed 2.
Yeah, because in the game there are parts of the encounter that didn't happen, and I know they put them in for gameplay mechanics. Like, for example, David and Ellie are supposed to fight a group of infected, but they don't. Okay, fine. I'm willing to let that go.
Because that was a little superfluous, except that it would have let us build up the false sense of trust. But they don't need that for this one because they show the townspeople earlier on and establish a level of unease that isn't there in the game until after.
Yeah, that I thought was actually kind of a smart thing. And one thing I can say about the adaptation is the changes that they've made have been really, really good. Like, I think the best episode this season, and it'll get nominated for an Emmy or something, is the Bill and Frank episode for sure.
Yeah.
That'll get nominated for something.
Yeah. Now, did you catch Troy Baker?
I did. And there was people wanted Pedro Pascal to interrogate Troy Baker to have a Joel meets Joel moment, but that didn't happen, obviously. This was, like I said, this was really, really good. Like, there isn't anything really negative I can say about The Last of Us. I've had some people complain about Ramsey. I think she's done a really fantastic job, especially as the show has gone on. You could maybe argue it was a little rough in the beginning, but I really think this show has done so well to adapt a story that all of us for years were afraid would not work on screen. But Pedro Pascal's done, he's fucking Mando. Bella Ramsey, I mean, her biggest thing was Game of Thrones before this. You're taking on one of the most beloved characters in modern video games. You've done a fantastic job. Gabriel Luna as Tommy. Admittedly, he hasn't been given a whole lot to do, but I do like him. I'm really sad we don't get more Bill and Frank, because I know in The Last of Us Part 2, there's a reference to Bill where he is still alive in his town, but that ended how it ended. But it was beautiful.
It also doesn't mean we won't get further flashbacks.
Yeah, which I would hope to see that. But at the same time, if those two characters have to exist in a bubble, I'm perfectly fine with it. Like, there was so much well done in this series. And when I really think about it, we haven't seen a lot of infected for a zombie show, quote unquote. We haven't seen a lot of undead, and it works. Like, it's not Walking Dead where they're always fighting walkers week to week. Here, you're not seeing infected week to week. Obviously, the big metaphor with these type of things is, oh, the living are the worst problem and blah, 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 blah. But I don't know. There's just something about this that I think other shows like The Witcher, even Fallout when that comes out, Twisted Metal, that's gonna fucking bomb so hard.
Well, and what I do like is that, I saw some people that maybe didn't play the game or just watched it posting online last night, like, why haven't there been any of the infected? It's like,
it's too cold.
Well, they're in Colorado mountains.
Yeah.
Like literally they're in a place that is too cold all of the year. Even in summer, it's not going to be quite warm enough for them.
You might get the odd one because Jackson's in Nebraska, which isn't too far away, is it?
Well, yeah. But anywhere where there's a mountainous region, you won't get them is the fungus can't go through the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like the root system, it's going to go through fertile land a lot easier than it is frozen mountain land.
Yeah.
So, like, I've always been interested in the world there, being like, hey, you know what? Like, when they talk about, they never show it in the games. Maybe if they make a third one, but like, I would question, would the American government have not just relocated to Alaska
or Cheyenne Mountain or something?
But even then, like, they're like, would Alaska and like, would the Canadian government have not just been like, hey, like, Northwest Territories or none of it, that's now our staging grounds, or like, you know what I mean, for everything? Would they have not moved the military and the government to one of the northern like research bases, because you can go to a place where there's permafrost and there's no mushrooms that can grow?
Well, the place that would be the most secure in the world, but it would be incredibly hostile towards you, would be Baffin Island or someplace just off of James Bay in Canada.
Or actually, you know what?
Iceland?
I wouldn't be surprised. Like, in the game, Alaska's one thing, but you'd think because of how established and how well equipped the facilities are, you'd think that, like, you find out the president's living on, like, Antarctica.
Yeah, or some shit like that. Yeah, I mean, I'd be very curious to hear more about the extended lore of what happened to other world governments.
Because we never hear, like, there's just assumed that everything's shut down. It's like, but there's a whole lot of Canada that would not be permanently shut down, because we're sparse enough apart that once you start driving, you might drive to a spot where they're like even if the zombies, quote unquote, wanted to walk to you, they'd freeze to death trying to walk the 700 miles to civilization.
Yeah, because they say certain infected only last a couple of months, but certain ones can last 20 years or more.
But the farther north we go, the less likely they are to even be able to spread, right?
Yeah, it would be more difficult.
You'd wonder, like, okay, how about Scandinavia, and like, what about the Netherlands and you know, Russia, or what about places that maybe wouldn't have actually imported the grain or anything, like certain ones that are more self-sustaining or don't use grain as part, like, there's parts of Asian countries where they don't use that kind of flour.
My guess is there's probably some MacGuffin around it. So
yeah, I guess the argument is a pandemic spreads like a pandemic spreads, but I would think that it could be revealed that even if flights, like, basically travel between areas is restricted because it's hard to get fuel, but like,
Australia and New Zealand could be completely isolated.
That's what I'm saying. Like, as long as their island doesn't get infected, they could have, like, it would be interesting to find out at the end, like, a real fuck you moment in The Last of Us would be finding out that it's literally just America that's shut down. Everybody else is recovering.
I think it'd be interesting if the new world government popped up in like New Zealand or Tanzania or some shit like that. But yeah, I mean,
yeah, it would be like parts of Africa, but specifically it would be all the cold nations. Like, Argentina's fine, the southern tips of Argentina, and like northern Canada, northern Europe, parts of Australia, and everything else near the equator is just done.
Yeah. So ultimately, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. I know we will be doing a discussion on this. We'll definitely be doing a special prototype on this where we'll talk about The Last of Us, how it's adapted the games and everything. So look for that in the next 2 weeks or so. It'll be me, Alex, and probably Ken too. So we'll be talking about that. Then our final story this week, and this one just premiered today as of the show recording. So I'm presuming this will be posted on Tuesday. So go back onto YouTube and watch this trailer today. So this story comes courtesy of comicbook.com. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem cast and trailer premiere date revealed. So today, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem has revealed its cast, and its first trailer will debut. It already has. During the 2023 Nickelodeon Kids' Choice event, producer Seth Rogen announced the main voice cast of the upcoming CG animated theatrical film. Joining Rogen on stage were the actors playing the four turtles in the films: Micah Abbey, Shamon Brown Jr., Nick Nicholas Cantu, Brady Noon. Rogan also announced the teaser trailer for the film will premiere on the TMNT Movie Socials and Paramount Pictures YouTube channel on Monday, March 6th, which is today as of this recording.
I'm sorry, but whenever anybody mentions that kid's name, I think of Michael Jackson. Shamon.
In a statement, president of Nickelodeon Animation and Paramount Animation, Ramsey Nato, said, quote, "We are beyond thrilled by this world-class cast we've assembled to bring these iconic beloved characters to life in a new chapter of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles universe. This really sets a new bar for the globally celebrated franchise, and we can't wait to show the audiences this film." I've already read the main turtles, so I'm going to read some of these other ones. Hannibal Buress will be playing Genghis Frog of the Punk Frogs. Rose Byrne will be playing presumably a gender swap version of Leatherhead. If not, I'm still down for it. John Cena is Rocksteady. That's, I think, really fun casting. Jackie Chan is Splinter. Ice Cube as Superfly. I don't know who that character is. Natasha Demetriou as Wingnut. That's really cool. I can't pronounce her last name. I'm sorry. April O'Neil. Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter Stockman.
Like Io Edebiri?
Abiri, yeah. I think that's how I've heard it pronounced.
Edebiri.
Edebiri. So she will be playing April. Post Malone as Ray Fillet. Yet kind of a deep cut from the not from the cartoon, from the toys. I know he recently got a Super 7 articulated figure. Seth Rogen as Bebop, so not bad. Continuing his Warthog aficionado. Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko. Weird pick. Again, another deep cut from the toy line. And Maya Rudolph as Cynthia Utom. I guess that's one of the Dimension X people.
I'm looking it up now because it doesn't have a blue link. What the hell is it? Is it a new character?
If it's an Utom, it's a Dimension X person.
There's literally no pictures anywhere on the internet whatsoever. That character didn't exist before.
Yeah, just judging by the last name, it's a Dimension X character.
So is it literally going to be that she's like a normal human, and then it's revealed she's one of the brains, and then she's going to be reporting to Krang?
Wouldn't that actually maybe like a sleeper agent? That could be interesting. Actually,
that's what I'm saying. Like she'd be talking, blah 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 blah, and then like it looks like a human. But then she like opens her jacket and there's a brain inside of her and she's talking to Krang. It's like the invasion is set, sir.
See, I'd like to know who's playing Shredder because that hasn't been announced yet.
And Krang hasn't been announced. Shredder. Well, I mean, you can't get Uncle Phil, unfortunately.
The guy who played him from the 2012 series was really good. Michael Richardson. I would hope.
I thought you were gonna say Kramer.
Yeah,
Michael Richards.
No,
no. Why don't they get Carlton to do it?
Actually, you could put him as one of the foot soldier people.
If you want to. It's like you want like the casting. It's like, oh, this is a great cast. And be like, oh, who's playing Shredder? And it's like Mario Lopez. You're like, what?
Actually,
like pick somebody so random.
I'm kind of thinking here, like we don't have casting for Shredder, which we don't even know if he's the main bad guy. I'm guessing Baxter Stockman might be actually.
You think so?
I'm kind of with Giancarlo. That's a pretty big person to like cast right now. I'm also thinking there's no Karai, so they're not going to be following that story thread, which that's been done to death, honestly, in the last couple of shows. I don't see Krang. I would hope Pat Fahey gets a voice cameo somewhere, but I could see why they maybe wouldn't.
Do you think they're going to throw in some of the original voice cast people that are still around as like incidental voices in the background?
I would hope so. Like just to hear Rob Paulson would be kind of fun, or Townsend Coleman.
Like not as characters, but like
random New Yorkers or whatever.
What if Paulson's like a pizza delivery man?
Yeah, see, that'd be fun, and that'd be fine, and that's a good way to honor the franchise. Winking at the camera, they get a day of work. Fine, that'd be great. The trailer's animation, I think it looks pretty cool. I love the look of the new Turtles. I think I saw designs for the toys recently too. They look okay. I probably won't be covering the toys just because, frankly, I don't have space for them. They just would. They would be donated to a children's charity if I did.
I was gonna say you can still donate them.
Yeah. Like, I remember the last time I covered Turtles in any large capacity, Playmates Toys sent me a refrigerator box of every single TMNT toy from the 2012 line. I pretty much had the entire line at one point. And then I sold it off a couple of years ago. But
Wheelchair fund, baby.
yeah, wheelchair fund, yeah. Like, I don't know. I think this has potential to be good. The fact that it's not going to streaming immediately is, I think, a very good sign. And despite that being said, the rise of the TMNT movie that premiered exclusively on Netflix last summer, that wasn't bad. That surprised me how good that was. And I didn't expect that storyline to get concluded. So Turtles fans, Alex, we've been eating good for a while. We got the Cowabunga collection, Shredder's Revenge.
As much as this is a Paramount, Nickelodeon, Paramount, yada yada, what you should be doing is you should be thanking Sony for making Spider-Verse, because that is what reinvigorated interesting styles of animation in a theatrical movie that weren't just like the way CG kids movies had become were very homogenized and they all look kind of the same. And then they were like, hey, let's take 20 different animation styles and make it into one movie.
Yeah.
And one of those styles being sort of a stop motion-y, claymation effect. And we're seeing that even more in the sequel trailer. And I'm like, I swear, had that movie not made bank, you wouldn't have seen this movie come out the way it did. It might have just been a direct-to-video, like, cheaper animation.
Yeah, like, I'm glad that we're starting to see these new experimental movies come out. Like, I'm glad to be a Turtle fan again and seeing new things done with the IP. I remember years ago, Alex, when we first found out Rogan was going to be involved in this, we're like, I don't know, man. And now we're here seeing the trailer. We're like one day removed from it, technically, when you're hearing this podcast. I'm excited. I'm hoping we'll see more. I imagine we'll see this trailer in theaters probably in the next couple of weeks. It looks cool. I want to hear John Cena with Seth Rogen as Bebop and Rocksteady, because one of the worst and best parts of TMNT Out of the Shadows was Bebop and Rocksteady, because they were so ridiculously goofy.
Well, how do we want to start taking bets as to how many seconds into the film before we hear Rogan just going,
that kind of suits Bebop. I'm kind of okay with it, but you're right.
Like, how long is it going to take till he does that? Till it's just Rogan and it's not him doing a character?
Yeah, it's going to be weird. It's going to be even stranger when we hear Rogan as Donkey Kong do that laugh.
Is it weird that Donkey Kong, I don't hear like any of the game voices or anything, or grunts? I only hear the terrible Canadian South African cartoon voice.
Yeah.
That was, but anyway, looking at it, it's kind of a renaissance for Paramount animation, because for a while everybody just talks about basically Warner and Disney, right? When it comes to theatrical, and then everybody else has sort of faded away, but they've been on a comeback with they did the SpongeBob movies, and then what was it, that Rumble movie that was hampered by the fact that it came out during the pandemic.
Yeah, and now they've got Transformers Earthspark on Paramount Plus, which is a good voice cast.
And then upcoming theatrical movies, they've got a Sandy movie from like a spin-off of SpongeBob.
Yeah, that'll be fun.
The Tiger's Apprentice, which is an action adventure fantasy novel, it's being adapted into a theatrical feature. Transformers: A New Generation.
Oh.
It says there's a series of science fiction action films based on Transformers franchise. Okay, so there's that. Smurfs musical, yay. But another mainline SpongeBob, an Avatar animated feature.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah, that's about 2 years away. And Under the Boardwalk is a computer animated. So they've got like 5 or 6 big productions in the works.
Yeah,
and that's just like theatrical movies. They've got other stuff coming up on TV. Like I think now that Paramount Plus is established, we're going to start seeing, a better flow of maybe better quality animation.
I would wonder if they'll resurrect, because they own the G.I. Joe brand. Will we get a new G.I. Joe animated series at some point?
They don't own that.
So they don't work with like Hasbro anymore?
They do and they don't. That would all be produced by E1 because E1 is owned by.
But didn't they sell off their interest in these properties?
No, they sold off their TV stuff. So it would depend. The only reason they have Transformers is because they have a live action computer or CGI license thingy bobber, where it's like, if it's television related, they have to do a picture by picture or a show by show deal. G.I. Joe, I believe, is completely like the contract is up. I don't think that's why they haven't had anything. So we'll see.
Yeah,
we'll see, because it would be interesting. Like, I think at this point you could make, instead of a cartoon, I think you could make a pretty decent Paramount Plus show based on G.I. Joe.
Yeah,
and just have it be like the A-Team.
Yeah, that would actually be kind of fun. I mean, you would just need CG for some of the vehicles.
Be like G.I. Joe Bravo team or something.
That could be kind of cool.
And instead of having like the giant cast, you have like 5 people that go on missions to save people, and it's basically MacGyver.
Yeah, like you would have somebody in the Snake Eyes costume, because Ray Park, you ain't coming back, buddy. But you could get someone to play Duke. You could get Flint, a Roadblock, Rock and Roll. Like, there's so many people you could swap in and out.
Like, what's his name? Like, Dennis Quaid isn't doing much right now, right? You could just have him be Hawk in it.
Yeah,
as like he introduces them to their mission every single episode, and then the actual team of like younger people that aren't famous are there.
Yeah, and like you could have the recurring bad guys being someone in the Destro mask. You could have the Baroness.
Let's be honest. What the hell? It's been like, what, 5 years? What the hell has Joseph Gordon-Levitt been doing?
I think he just has directing gigs now. I don't think he acts anymore.
He was in that Apple TV show where he played a teacher, and the show flopped, and he's done nothing. But like, wasn't he Cobra Commander?
Yeah, do that again. Hell, if he wants to come back. I mean, it's too bad they blew up Ray Stevenson, because he was a great Firefly. But yeah, there's so much you could do with a live action G.I. Joe show, and it would kind of bring back that 90s era action adventure show, and you'd be leaning on a big IP. And if you really wanted to tie it into something, Hasbro and G.I. Joe, you could do something with Transformers.
You know what it's going to be, because it's Paramount and Nickelodeon and all that. It would be a Nickelodeon show, and it would be G.I. Joe Academy, and then they would just bring out Sergeant Slaughter to train the kids.
You know what? I could get behind that. I could get behind that.
Sergeant Slaughter is old as shit, but he come out attention, and it's just old Sergeant Slaughter.
That would be awesome. Give me G.I. Joe Academy.
A joint venture. They just get like old retired WWE wrestlers to show up as like the trainers.
Oh my god, that'd be, not gonna lie, that'd be kind of fun.
Brutus the Barber Beefcake as some G.I. Joe. Tatanka shows up and like trains them on how to like listen to the land or something.
Oh my god.
So it'd be like watching like an 80s cartoon, but with live action old like 70-year-old wrestlers.
So yeah, that's what we got for the entertainment news here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We're going to take another small break here. We're going to take a listen to something that Ken took a look at for us to review this week. And when we come back, we're going to break down the strange and unusual things that happened around Earth or this parallel dimension this week. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Hey guys, Ken Reels here, and welcome to my review of Brok the Investigator. Yes, I'm saying Investigator quite literally that way because he is an alligator. So the developer and publisher Cowcat Games sent me a code on Steam for this game, but it just recently launched on all major consoles quite recently. Now this game is a point-and-click / 2D brawler a la Double Dragon or the more recent Streets of Rage 4. And you play as two characters, Brok, an investigator, Private Eye, and his adopted son, Graf. And you have this underlying mystery in this dystopian future where you are obviously Private Eye, you're solving crime in this very dystopian future world where you have these two different sects of the population. You have obviously you have the slums and the poor people, and you have the people in the more posh areas of this world that live under this dome bubble because there's toxic the world is toxic outside of this bubble, basically. It's very like post-apocalyptic kind of stuff, very standard future post-apocalyptic things going on in the game, but it switches between these two aspects. You have this point-and-click adventure kind of aspect, but then you also have these 2D brawler segments where it allows you to move in the 2D plane like you would in Streets of Rage or Double Dragon, and you're fighting enemies. Now, the fighting system in this game is actually really, really well done, really well in depth. I was able to immediately, going right into it, start juggling enemies in the air pretty easy. And you can actually just juggle enemies and get them into a hit combo where you just completely decimate them, and it is really, really cool. It very much plays like you would a Double Dragon. And when it comes to the point-and-click adventure stuff, it does have aspects of moon logic. And what I mean by moon logic is puzzles that you're going to have to really think like the devs and try and solve them. And they are real. Those moments are really annoying. However, it does contain a hint system where throughout the game, every single main screen in the game has 3 ads, and those ads are your hint system. So it's basically a hint currency, and every single screen in the game has these ads placed throughout it. And that allows you to use the hint system. And the hint system is a little vague. I wouldn't say it's terrible, though when you click on the first hint, it does the standard Professor Layton, like 3 levels of hints for a major puzzle in the game, and I don't necessarily like how the first thing is worded. Most of the time you're going to end up having to spend more than just one ad to actually understand what the heck it's talking about. And sometimes you just do it. You can just brute force it and do a lot of these puzzles through just looking at something and just kind of pressing buttons and stuff. And it's kind of amusing because the game even acknowledges when you there was a moment in one of the puzzles where it was just random buttons, and I just started pressing random buttons, and the actual character in the game was like, "Oh hey, I was just pressing random buttons and I somehow figured that out. Neat. And that's another thing that I want to point out. The dialogue in this game is absolutely spectacular. It definitely gave me a chuckle here and there throughout my 20 or so hours of playing through this. And it's a really fun game. And especially like the music in this game is really, really well done. The music is done by a gentleman called Python Blue. The soundtrack is absolutely spectacular. Really enjoyed it. I'm actually laying that underneath this review, so if you're listening to this review, you probably hear some of the music that I'm playing under here. And overall, I think it is a really interesting game. Now, I will say it is rated T for teen, and that is legitimately a reason for it to be rated T for teen in what otherwise would possibly be something for like me. I would say maybe a 10 or 12-year-old. You might want to kind of judge from there whether a 10 to 12-year-old could possibly play this. Or you might want to say talk about showing this to like a 13 or 15-year-old, depending on their maturity and general knowledge, because there's a lot of stuff that might be a little darker for that younger age group. But overall, it's a positive game, and for the price of $25 on console, and it's $20 on PC. But for even that $25, the console version is absolutely worth it in my book. And controller-wise, it plays fine, even in the point-and-click sections. And this is a really good game. So I highly recommend checking out Brok the Investigator. It's available on all major consoles as well as Steam. And also thank you for Cowcat Games for sending me a code.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm Mike the Birdman. He's Alex Patricia. Big thanks to Ken for putting that together for us. Okay, so we're going to start things off with the strange than usual, the things that, well, you may have expected and may not have expected if you happen to read some tabloid newspapers. This is the weird news. We're going to start things off with a story that kind of warms my heart, kind of hits me right in the feels. Over $30 million worth of Funko are headed to landfill. The company that makes Funko Pop collectibles is in so much trouble, it's preparing to throw hundreds of thousands of its pop culture-inspired figurines into the garbage. Funko revealed the plans in a recent earnings call filled with so much bad news, its stock price fell off a cliff the next day. Quote, inventory at year-end totaled $246.4 million, an increase of 48% compared to a year ago, the company wrote in a press release on Wednesday. This includes inventory that the company intends to eliminate in the first half of 2023 to reduce fulfillment costs by managing inventory levels to align with the operating capacity of our distribution center. This is expected to result in a write-down of the first half of 2023 of approximately $30 to $36 million. Translation, Funko's warehouses are overflowing with 5-inch chibi replicas of Machine Gun Kelly, Spider-Man, Pikachu, and every other vaguely famous cultural icon. Throwing them out will be cheaper than trying to sell them. During a call with investors, CEO Brian Marotti said a new distribution center in Arizona was so full that the company has been bleeding cash, renting shipping containers to hold all the excess inventory. Marotti arrived just last year amid an executive shakeup following increasingly bad earnings news. The stock price cratered last November when Funko slashed its financial outlook for the year and fell by another 25% this week as the company revealed it would lay off 10% of its employees. Part of what seems to be the ongoing supply chain shortages combined with extra income at the time when during the household at home during the early pandemic years spurred a temporary run on Funko Pop sales. Now that the initial rush has subsided, the company has a ton of extra stock. At the same time, sales are dropping. It's hard not to wonder if the entire bobblehead redux has hit its peak saturation. We're now in the third season of Mandalorian. How many more little pea green orange Grogu's do people really need? Funko Pop Collectibles has long propped up a secondary speculators market which tries to stay ahead of the curve, which will release on being rare and valuable in the future. A pair of Willy Wonka Funko Pops recently went for $100,000. Over the long run, 99% of Funkos are worthless outside of whatever depraved joy fans get from occasionally making eye contact with the ones lining their shelves, and now a ton more are apparently headed for a landfill somewhere in Arizona. May our future ancestors or aliens excavating our civilization sometime in the distant future forgive us. Now, I went to a discount chain here in Canada called Dollarama, I think it is, Alex, or Bucket or something. And
Dollarama, yeah.
They are full of Funko Pops. And I did see one that was cool. It was the zombie Falcon from What If. That one actually had some good sculpting. But with the other tons of like Harry Potter and Squid Game and Eternals and just random franchise and random baseball players, which if you didn't know, this is Aaron Hernandez. How would you ever know?
Do you? Because they all have the same look.
Yeah.
Do you remember, what was it, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, during the what would have been E3, when they announced that they're making a super high budget AAA $50 million plus video game?
Yeah, whatever happened to that?
That ain't coming out now. If they sunk a lot of money into that, and if they can't even sell the goddamn toys, they're not going to be making that goddamn game.
Like, now I will admit I have bought some Funkos in the last few months, and it's only because I get them for Blair. I buy the Pokemon ones that are only of the evolutions, but I will not pay secondary market prices. I'll only.
I'm kidding. I'm just fucking with you.
And outside of that, in my personal collection, I have a Lord Draken from Power Rangers. I have a White Ranger, and that's it. I have basically Tommy Oliver. That's it.
What do I have? I've got I think you have the same one I do too. Hollywood Hogan that came.
I sold that for $200 a couple years ago.
Was it sealed?
No, loose. $200.
Well, I've got mine sitting on a shelf. I have that. I have.
And
I think a Power Ranger or two.
I've got some Ghostbusters ones too.
I got Captain Picard. And I have Lopan.
Yeah.
Because it's unique looking. That's it. I don't give a shit about the rest. I mean, hey, if I can get $200 for mine, I'll take it. Some sucker can buy it.
Yeah. I do have a giant one that my sister Shannon gave me. That's of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and it's literally as tall as one of my Transformers combiners.
Oh, does the Stick of Truth Cartman count? Because that wasn't really a Funko.
No.
It was made by Funko.
Technically, no, if you really want to split hairs on it. But that one is really, really well made. And Funko, to a certain extent, if it's a vinyl figure and well made, fine. But the Funkos, they're almost so universally devoid of what makes them interesting. Excuse me.
The dead eyes take away 90% of the personality.
See, for me, the ones that I like, that I have, that I can see right now, I have the Ghostbusters mini puffs because I'm so close to completing all of them. cool. Like the only one I think I'm missing is the mini puff with the headphones that was exclusive to Walmart. I remember it was 2 years ago when Ghostbusters Afterlife came out, there was an exclusive Funko Pop to Baskin Robbins that not many people knew about it. So I was able to get a couple and I could trade them to other toy collectors because evidently a lot of places just didn't get them. And that's when I noticed the market was starting to fall out of these things, because I found out after a few days, a lot of those Baskin Robbins had tons of overstock because they couldn't sell them. They couldn't get rid of them. But other retailers, like there's one retailer I can name, I'm not going to name them specifically, but they're in Kitchener-Waterloo, Alex. They're right near our vet. And they have their entire store is Funko. They are so fucked that I don't know what they're gonna do.
Like there's a card and collectibles place, Funko one. I think I know who you're talking about. There's a couple. Like I don't know if it's the exact same store, but there's one. I'll double check. There's a guy that runs a store that sells mostly wrestling toys.
Yes, that's the place. That's the place. It's all Funko. What are you gonna do?
I know him.
Oh my god, I'm sorry.
He worked at Geek Squad like years ago, and he was like in the backyard wrestling scene. He's like 10-15 years older than me. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he worked for Geek Squad for like as like the in-house guy for I don't know 15-20 years. Mm-hmm. And I think that he started that business. It's basically Funko and wrestling toys. And they were in Cambridge and they just moved to Kitchener.
Like that's the sort of thing where like I have another friend of mine who runs a comic book store, and he very wisely he pivoted away from that stuff. For sure there's some in the store because somebody still wants them, but the Funko market fell out years ago. Like even Walmart, like actually when you go to Toys R Us right now, because I always go in there for like kind of Transformers and stuff, it says all Funko Pop sales are final. They don't want them back. You buy it, you're fucked.
You can't even return them when they're sealed.
Nope. Because you can lose quote unquote the value the second you crack the seal, which if the box is even remotely dinged, you can't resell it at maximum value, which the resellers for these Funkos, I actually had this idea the other day, Alex, and I'm going to run it past you. So let's say I'm Funko Pop and I haven't made all the stupid decisions that have led me to right now. If you want to sell a Funko Pop of, say, Machine Gun Kelly, Rihanna, Metallica, or some shit like that, right? I order 100,000 of them, and I'm putting in a large number just because I don't know purchasing. But if you want these Funko Pops, you have to go to the concert, or you have to buy them off the website. You don't put them in Toys R Us, Target, Walmart, every convenience store you can think of. You make them limited. You can charge more. People will buy them because there are always super fans of whatever franchise. Or you offer them at San Diego Comic-Con, which is what they often do. With cons, they'll get an exclusive glow-in-the-dark Goku or some bullshit.
Funko's only going to make they're
done.
They're done outside of putting collector's items within box sets of other things.
Yeah, like if you told me, hey, you can get Metallica's Black Album, Funko Pops, whatever, but they also have these weird ones.
It's like, you want to buy the like, I don't know, let's say there's an Iron Maiden best of collector's box with like 3 CDs for $50, and it comes with a Funko of their mascot Eddie.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
You're like, okay, cool. But again, I the market for people spending $15 to $20 on these is done, unless like it's no longer a let's buy a Funko as the gift. It's let's throw a Funko in a box with other stuff to complete a gift.
Do you remember
wanting
when I got my Reddit package a couple years ago, and you could tell someone they did exactly that?
Yeah.
Do you remember
Yep.
that shit? And I mean, maybe the person didn't have a lot of money. I don't mean to judge someone's kind of generosity, but I could tell this was meant just to hit the dollar amount in the hope that they get something fantastic. I remember
there's a reason that they shut down that program, and it's not because of the pandemic. It's because they were getting complaints that people that the more famous the Reddit gift exchange got, the more opportunists went in.
Yo, for sure.
It went from being everybody trying to one up each other to only 1 in 10 people actually giving a decent gift.
Yeah, like I went all out for my gifts because I always have extra things from like press releases or
I got a $10 book and I gave $50 worth of stuff.
Yeah,
and I was like, and that book I almost wanted to burn it, and I'm like, it was Ready Player One, and I'm like, you gave me one of the worst. You basically walked into a bookstore and said, hey, what's on the front shelf in the clearance aisle?
Yeah. Like it's disappointing. And I remember I bought Funkos for a gift last year because it was a Halloween exclusive to like the Disney store or something. It was the collector set for Hocus Pocus because somebody that I knew really wanted it. I'm thinking, you know what? I've got a little bit of extra money right now. I don't mind.
Even with the cold dead eyes,
they thought it was cool. And it's not to say I haven't seen like one of the coolest Funkos I've seen. There's a giant Unicron that I think looks really cool, and there's a giant Soundwave. It depends. As long as it's not humanoid, some of it can be really fantastically sculpted.
Well, like, I'm on their website, icons. One of them is just Airman, U.S. Air Force.
What the hell?
Generic army man.
Yeah, it's a uniform. You're paying for the sculpting of the uniform.
Or Frontline Heroes, and it's just a person wearing scrubs.
Like, unless that money's going to like a doctor's organization.
Oh, it is 100% not, and they've discounted it to $6 because nobody's buying it.
That's insulting.
Let me just double check the packaging to see if it says anything. It does fuck all. They aren't giving money to anybody.
Yeah, see,
maybe they did for like the first week of sales, but that's not what's happening on the website now. And then there's like a Bob Ross one, and I'm like, that's cool, but it's not painted as well as Bob Ross would paint things.
Yeah,
like Stretch Armstrong pop. Oh, that's great. It doesn't stretch.
Yeah, like it's so weird. Like one of my big problems with Funko as a toy collector is I appreciate a good sculpt. Like, for example, I'm looking at my White Ranger and my Green Ranger right now. As Funko Pops, I don't mind them because the sculpt work on the helmets and on the details on like their shields on their chest, that's nice. As I look at the sculpt work on my mini puffs, I've looked at the little one eating a piece of pizza. That's not bad. That looks pretty good.
And again, it's because they don't have the cold, dead, basic eyes that they all the regular humanoid ones have.
Yeah, it's like, again, what are you getting out of a Tekashi 6ix9ine one or Rihanna? Like, you're just getting clothing sculpts. That's all you're paying for.
And we know a few people that their entire obsession is these things. And the worst part is when they don't even take them out of the packaging, and they're not there to try to think they're going to flip them for money. They're not even like opportunists, that they have built shrines to the boxes.
Well, and my main problem with that is if you're going to build a shrine and you're going to keep them in box, you need box collectors. Like if you collect any toy that's in a package, you gotta slab it.
No, Michael, you're supposed to stack them like you're stacking cans of empty beers on a corner table without a display case or lighting, just to have there to show, hey, look at my cool collection of cardboard boxes.
And at the same time, and this is going to be really fucking dorky, what I say next, is unless you have the proper collector's cases for certain figures, you're going to get sun fading. UV damage is a hell of a fucking thing for certain toys. There's a certain YouTuber that I talked to on Twitter, and I said to him, hey, you've got all these cool toys. It's awesome. You're still keeping them in packages. That's great. Do you have UV protection for your windows? What do you mean? Well, sun can and will fade plastic, and if it's exposed to air for too long, white plastic in particular will yellow over time depending on how that particular plastic was mixed. You see this an awful lot with certain Transformers and certain Star Wars figures. You see it a lot in early Kenner figures as well, where certain figures turn yellow. Actually, some figures will technically grow mold on them because of the way that the plastic was made, and you can fix that by doing a certain chemical bath. But if you do that, you're reducing the value of the figure. But I digress.
The only way I would get Funkos now is if you could make your own, and I don't mean like Build-A-Bear. I mean like if you could take a picture, like send a picture in, and the lab will use AI to make a Funko look like you. See, and then you could get that made.
I always wonder how people made custom Funkos. I never looked into it.
They sell, or they did at one point, they sold completely white blank ones that are in the generic boy or generic girl ones, and then you just paint them however you want.
Oh, well, I'm not that talented. Yeah, like if there was like a Hasbro selfie series,
you have problems opening the packaging of the toys.
That's why I carry a little knife. But
I'm not being mean. I'm just laughing because it's like you are not wrong when you say that you're not talented enough to paint them. Neither am I. But like when you're like, oh, I can't do that. It's like, no, I don't know if the listeners realize you can't.
Yeah, no, I literally can't. But yeah, it's depressing to see how much that market built up so many mom and pop businesses. I've seen so many online stores focus entirely on Funko, and this market was always going to crash.
It's the Beanie Baby of our generation. It's the Warhammer store. You know, like how many Warhammer stores can exist?
Maybe 1, 2 in a certain region.
One per city is all you can really support, depending on the size of your city.
Yeah.
If you're a metropolitan, like if you're Toronto and you got 5 million people, you can have about maybe
5, 10.
10.
Yeah.
For our region, there's like 3 or 4, and it's like, and that's pushing it.
Yeah,
and
that's competitive.
They survive by running games and basically begging for money for people to come play games at their stores. You can't survive off of being a one brand store.
Yeah, like you couldn't just be the D&D store. You would have to branch out into Pathfinder,
and the worst part,
or whatever.
At least one thing Funko didn't do is they didn't do what Games Workshop did, which is tell other people you can't sell anything else.
Yeah,
because remember that was a big issue for a long time.
Yep.
And for a while D&D was the same. You could sell D&D and be a D&D reseller, but you couldn't sell Pathfinder. You're like, what do you mean you can't? It's like, well, to keep your sponsorship, to be able to run games here, you can't do that. It's like, that's anti-competitive shit. Now Warhammer is way worse for that.
Oh yeah.
Like for you to be even allowed to use like their signage, you're not allowed to sell anything else. At least that's how it was. I don't know if it's the same way anymore, but like you wonder why all these stores start dying. It's because you can't live off of one brand. You know, they're not the Apple store. You know, the Funko store ain't gonna do what Lego. Like you can run a Lego store and just be Lego, but again, how many stores can you do that in an area?
Yeah.
Right? Like there is a point where, you know, every comic book shop became a Funko store, and they're probably panicking right now, trying to figure out how they're going to supplement their income since Funkos aren't selling anymore and comics aren't either.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird place. I mean, even the comic book store that I frequent now, they've got a lot of Funko Pops, and I'm a little worried. Like, what are you going to do? I mean, again, I've ordered one only because it's an evolution.
Here's a question. How fast does this shut down a bunch of the GameStops in the region?
Yeah, because those walls are full of them.
Entire walls. We're talking like hundreds of them facing forward, and they're not selling.
That's a really good point. Like GameStop's going to have to pivot something fucking fierce.
GameStop and EB Games Canada basically became the Funko store for the last like better part of almost 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. I don't go to GameStop to buy games. I go there to buy toys because
I go there to buy gaming hardware like controllers and whenever I pre-order a new system. I have not bought an actual game there since 2020.
I don't even remember what the last game I bought there was.
The last game I bought there like was when I picked up my PS5 and got Demon's Souls.
I think I pre-ordered a controller Yeah. I got a controller for my PlayStation 5, and that was it. So that should tell you something. All right, so we are going to move on from this depressing story onto a funny story.
And I'm sorry, if you're a Funko big fan and you're getting mad at us for this, I'm not sorry, actually. You did this to yourself. You beanie babied yourself.
I mean, if you get some joy out of it, great. Maybe you can take advantage some of these sales. Just know that some of these retailers that maybe
the old Alex is coming back for a second. If you really like those things and you worship these toys and you love them, reevaluate your life.
I'm not going to go quite that far. So this next,
no, but I'm saying if you are genuinely very upset by this, reevaluate why.
So this next story comes courtesy of Kotaku.com, which our last story did as well. So an illegal crypto mining operation was found hidden under a high school. A man has been arrested.
Oh, I saw this one. This is good.
A man has been arrested and is facing charges in a small town outside of Boston after local authorities discovered a, quote, illegal cryptocurrency mining operation tucked underneath a school's floor. As the BBC report, the accused 39-year-old Nadam Nas was previously the assistant facilities director for the small town of Cohasset, which is roughly 10 miles outside of Boston. In December 2021, a, quote, routine inspection of the school turned up some suspicious modification. Cohasset Police Chief William Quigley told the BBC that according to the Cohasset High School's own director of facilities, during a routine inspection of the school, he noticed electrical wires, temporary ductwork, and numerous computers that seemed out of place. The ducts and wiring were all headed towards the same place, near the school's boiler room, and was checking under the floor there. A cryptocurrency mining operation that was illegally plugged into the school's electrical system was discovered. As you can see in the image above, which I'll just kind of describe it to you, basically picture a really long conference room table filled with about about 13 or more computers, which are basically just not quite desktops. They're just put in these really simple cases with a big kind of cooling fan.
Basically, with like $1,200 video cards.
Yeah.
So that would be like 20 grand worth of computers.
Yeah. So it says, while this wasn't a warehouse sized operation, quote, the 11 computers, were discovered, including some inside coolers that were vented to the outdoors. That was still a significant amount of hardware to be found hiding under a school's floor, and it was drawing more than enough power to leave a trace. Authorities say the mining operation operated from April to December 2021 and racked up electricity bills for the school estimated to be around $17,500. Nahas, who pleaded...
Whoa, 17,000?
In just that short amount of time.
Wait a minute. So they probably got 1,100 watt power supplies. So 2,000. Oh, he's probably pulling in... Oh, that's like 20 kilowatts of power for that. Yeah, that's basically like running the stove. That's like turning your stove on.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, wait, thinking about how much power the stove is, 40 amp. That's like running 2 or 3 stoves at like the 500 degree, like, you know, almost like the max power for like 6 months straight. So yeah, that can add up to that.
So Nahas, who pled not guilty in a court appearance last week, resigned from his job as assistant facilities director shortly after the operation was discovered. He was arrested last year after a months-long investigation that involved not just local police, but the U.S. Coast Guard and the Department of Homeland Security as well. The Boston Globe says Nahas' specific charges are vandalizing a school, fraudulent use of electricity, and he has been, quote, ordered to stay away from all public buildings in Cohasset. Now, I did a little bit of digging on this. This guy was pulling in $70,000 a year. Why did he need this extra money?
Greed.
And ultimately, like, the cryptocurrency market is honestly, out.
Yeah, but honestly, it's greed.
Yeah.
It's just pure. It's I don't want to pay tax. That's what it is.
Yeah, because
it's how dare the government take tax from me? I'm going to do whatever I can to not pay taxes. So I'm going to make $17,000 of hydro, depending on how much hashes he was pulling. He could have made anywhere from 50 to 100 grand.
Yeah. And I'd like to know what coins he was mining, considering that market is so volatile, like cryptocurrency and NFT.
When I'm saying I'm saying 50,000 as like
base?
almost a conservative guarantee that you would make
Mm-hmm.
if you were doing something like if you're doing Bitcoin mining, which is not going to make you real money anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like he could have made up to 50 grand, up to 100 on something a little more volatile, or he could have made a couple $1 million. But if he did, that would have made the news.
Yeah, like this is stupid. I mean,
he probably made his yearly salary doing this, and tax free. He probably doubled what he was making in a year.
And we only like to cover cryptocurrency stuff when something particularly stupid happens. So our last story comes courtesy of CNN.com, and thank you, Alex, for sending this one in. Newly discovered chemicals are so deadly to fungi they are named after Keanu Reeves.
I put this in here for two reasons. One, Keanu Reeves, and two, we're watching Last of Us.
It's not every day.
We found it. We don't need a vaccine. We found the cure.
Keanu Reeves.
And it's Keanu Reeves.
It's not every day that effective fungus-killing compounds are discovered. So researchers in Germany's knew their recent find needed a special name. Identifying and testing 3 natural compounds that proved lethal to fungi, they were so impressed that they've named the chemicals after Keanu Reeves, a nod to how he eliminates villains in movies such as John Wick and The Matrix. The potential treatment for fungi comes at a time when the organisms are becoming more and more resistant to known antifungals, according to the study co-author Sebastian Gotez. A researcher with Germany's Leibniz Institute for National Product Research and Infection Biology, not only are the newly named microbes effective against plants, researchers found the compounds molecules commonly found in bacteria called lipitides also to be effective treatment against human fungal infections. The study was published recently in the Journal of American Chemicals of the American Chemical Society. Quote, the lipitides kill so effectively that we named them after Keanu Reeves because he too is extremely deadly in his role, Gauthier says in a statement. We have a crisis in anti-infectives. Many human pathogenic fungi are now resistant to antimycotics or antifungals, partly because they are used in large quantities in agricultural fields. Called I can't even pronounce this, Keamucungus or something. The newly found antimicrobial compounds are a natural byproduct of the bacterial Pseudomonas, typically found in soil and water. Researchers came across the compounds when studying Pseudomonas for their effectiveness against predatory amoebas. Scientists have known that, quote, many of these bacterial species are very toxic to amoeba, which feed on bacteria, said the lead study author, Pierre Stallforth, head of the Department of Paleobiotechnology at the Leibniz Institute. In a statement, Stallforth and his fellow researchers wanted to explore the bacteria's effectiveness against fungi, which have a cell structure similar to that of amoebas, according to the study. And then it just goes into a bunch of scientific jargon. That's pretty cool.
So we have the cure for Last of Us, and it's
John Wick.
Now, if only we could mix it with Taken, then it'd be like, we have a very, very specific set of skills is to kill fungus because the fungus killed his dog or some shit.
So we'll get the Keanu-itis and Liam Neeson microbial, and we'll have the ultimate antifungal, antibacterial resistant super drugs. There we go.
And we'll just get John Goodman from Arachnophobia as Delbert to just go around spraying it, spraying the ultimate bug killer / fungal killer.
There we go. This is how you eliminate antifungals, antibacterial resistant shit, and bugs. We got
dude.
You
like episode 2 of Last of Us, when we're watching that, like, and we're getting the backstory, and the scientist lady in, was it Jakarta?
Yeah.
And she goes and sits down. And they're like, what's the solution? She's like, bomb everybody, like, kill everybody. And then after that, it's like, how many people have been infected? Like 14. She's just like, it's too late.
I remember looking at Blair when that moment happened. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, like she wanted to bomb everybody before she found out how many people had already been infected.
Yeah.
And when they're like, there's 14 people missing, it's like, it's too many.
Yeah.
The bombs aren't even going to help, but you should still do it now.
I want to go home with my family.
When there was just one unknown person, she was like, bomb the whole city. And when it was more than one person, she's just like, I'd like to go visit my family now, please.
Yeah, like that.
And then you find out Jakarta was the first place bomb. They did take her advice and do it.
That's, oh my God. Again, folks, we're going to talk about this in just a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
But
I it was really cool because how often you don't really see the Philippines like shown off much as like a okay, it sounds bad, but every time you hear about the Philippines in movies and that, they try to make it seem like it's a third world country.
Yeah, in here,
but
it's a
the
technological
Philippines.
place.
Yeah, but I was gonna say it's not like a lot of our call centers that are in the Philippines because they speak like perfect English, like almost. It's like it's the official language, third or second language, right? Like, and it's the official language of business. The Philippines is like a fairly advanced country with all the same. They have their own version of the CDC and whatever. What do we have up here? I forget what we call ours, but like they have their own. Like it's not like some little tiny island with no people. It's one of the most populated countries, and over there, it's like it was so well done too. She's like so professional. She's just like bomb.
Yeah,
and the look on the general's face is like what she's like. Yeah, bomb everybody, and like the fact that he didn't just like flinch or be like, oh, you're joking. It's like, oh, like she's being serious. We have to go do this.
Yeah. So anyway, folks, that's going to do it for this edition of the Nerd News Network. And we're going to finish things off with a review I did this week. And this is where I wish I had something as effective as John Wick or Delbert. This is my review of Wulong Fallen Dynasty, and you're going to find out why Birdman isn't as good as he thinks he is at video games. We'll be back, guys, right after this, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Hey, guys, this is Mike the Birdman here, and I'm here to take a look at something that humbled me, if I'm going to be quite frank with you. We're going to be taking a look at a game we got from Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja. I'm talking about Wulong Fallen Dynasty on the PlayStation 5. And I have got to say, this is one of those games that totally made me question my cred as a gamer and more or less led me into existential crisis. Allow me to explain what I mean. So this is a game that is like a Soulsborne, and I am notoriously not good at these games. Although, when I first saw the trailers for this, I heard it described as kind of like a fighting game, and I figured, hey, I'm pretty good at Street Fighter, I'm not bad at Mortal Kombat, I generally don't suck. Oh boy, was I wrong. Now, that being said, I'm not calling this game bad. I'm calling myself absolutely abysmally terrible. And allow me to explain. So, this game is described as an action role-playing game, definitely in that Soulsborne kind of genre. I've actually heard this game compared to Sekiro and to Neo, neither of which I've played because of their reputation for being notoriously difficult, but there was something about when I saw the Wulong trailer that I'm like, you know what, maybe I'll give this one a whirl, maybe I'll do okay. I was wrong. I was humbled. I was humiliated. But what I did have was a fairly interesting time for as far as I got. And definitely when the next Star Wars Jedi Survivor game comes out, I'm sure I'll be a lot better at that when it comes to using a lightsaber. But when it comes to using ancient Chinese weaponry, effective I am not. So this game takes place during the era of, I think it's called the Three Kingdoms. In ancient China, there is like this demonic force. You're running against historical figures who've been corrupted by demons. And I really can't tell you too much about the story because I couldn't get very far. But what I can tell you about is the combat system. And this is like I said, very Soulsborne, very deflection heavy, very parry heavy, very dodge mechanically oriented. So you cannot button mash your way through this. In fact, you will get your ass kicked if you try and do so. So a lot of it, when you get into the boss fights, requires a lot of you deflecting critical blows, taking advantage of that momentary opening in the enemy's weak point to basically stab them in the face. Or you can use what is like wizardry spells, but you can also increase certain things. Like there are like 4 different kind of virtues, like wood, metal, water, stuff like that, and they have increased stats and stuff like that, but you can equip different sets of armor that can do different things, and enemies will drop things too, and believe me, enemies drop a lot, so you'll be doing a lot of inventory management, but I can tell you this, don't get your person too heavy, because that will affect how effective your weapons are. In fact, this game could almost be called Menu the Game, and you almost need a spreadsheet to keep track of some of this stuff. But one of the things I really want to say about this game has one of the coolest character creators I've seen in a really long time, as in it looks incredible making your own avatar. I made this like cool ninja girl sort of thing. I was actually kind of thinking, technically I could make Commander Shepard if I really wanted to. That's how robust this character creator is. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just wish I could have done more with it because, like I said, I didn't get very far in this game. Like I said, humiliatingly so. So, can I recommend Wulong Fallen Dynasty? Well, it's a more linear Soulsborne-like experience, and it does have some fun there to be had if this is your kind of genre. However, I wouldn't call this baby's first Soulsborne. I would say that's more like Jedi Fallen Order, where there are accessibility settings so you can turn down the windows for like kind of parrying. And I guess that's something to kind of make mention with this. There are no real accessibility settings here outside of like, hey, the text is now bigger, but you can't turn down enemy damage. There's no difficulty setting. It's just, here's hard, good luck. So I might suggest watching some gameplay online. If you can watch somebody live stream this, maybe get an idea to see if this is your kind of jam. I'm pretty sure this is available on Xbox Game Pass. Like I said, I reviewed this on PlayStation 5. There is a Seasons Pass available. If you pre-order in the next couple of days, or not pre-order, I guess if you buy this in the next couple of days, you do get an extra set of armor, which is actually pretty helpful in the early part of the game. But I can say Wulong Fallen Dynasty, well, you definitely showed me how good I think I am at video games. So big thanks to Team Ninja and Koei Tecmo for sending this over.
Stop now, or I shall use more big words at you.
And that's the kind of show it has been here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Certainly ran the gamut this week, talking about The Last of Us, Star Trek Discovery, talking about a potential domestic terrorist threat in the United States, because we really don't know anything. It's been a day, to say the least. So thank you for joining us here on the show.
You know what's a domestic terrorist threat? When I'm over at your place and I let rip one of the massive juicy farts that I'm known for.
And that's
actually, that's not even a threat. That's not a threat. That's a full-blown airborne attack.
And that's the kind of class that we bring you here on This Week in Geek each and every week here on the show.
Well, you remember when the pandemic was hitting and we said, hey, we're going into lockdown. We can't visit for a while. And that we realized it was going to be the last visit. What did I do? I let rip a nice, juicy, destroyer of worlds that lingered for days so you'd have something to remember me by.
Thank you.
And then we didn't see each other for like 4 months.
Yeah, Jesus. Hard to believe, man. But hey, hopefully I'll see you during March break.
When Alex goes out, he goes out with style.
This is very true. So coming up on the site this week, I know we have a loose cannon that me and Ken recorded. So Alex needs to put that out. We have our Star Trek year in review, which is recorded. We're going to be recording another loose cannon, which is going to be on Fear City and Nightmare Beach. We're going to record that hopefully this week. We actually have a guest coming to the show on Loose Cannon. We're going to bring my friend Enrique Couto from the Freddy's Nightmare podcast.
We fear change.
We do fear change. We're going to be talking about Theodore Rex and Prehysteria, movies that evidently have traumatized Enrique. So I don't believe these movies exist.
Isn't that the one with the claymation pterodactyls?
I think so. And it's a movie, I think Enrique said he was asleep on the couch during high school and he didn't believe it existed until he woke up and saw it. He's like, oh my God, this is real.
Something's hitting my brains. Is that a Charles Band production?
I think it might be.
When he did, because didn't Full Moon have like a children's wing for like 3 years in the mid-90s?
Yeah, I think it was that. Either that, if it wasn't Charles Band, it might have been his brother Albert. So we'll.
But that's there's something full moony about this, just the poster and for it, where I'm like, there's something full moony about.
You know what? We'll have to do a loose cannon month to salute Full Moon Pictures. I should try and get in touch with Charles Band again.
Well, the trick is to not do any of the major franchises.
Exactly.
You try to pick stuff that people don't remember at all.
I would love
everybody who, even people who don't know the company we're talking about,
Puppet Master,
know of Puppet Master,
or maybe even Subspecies if you're a bit of a kind of a B fan.
Or did he do Evil Bong?
Yes. Yes.
They know of that more recently. Evil Bong movies with Tommy Chong, and then they'll know
the Ginger Dead Man.
Ginger Dead Man, Puppet Master, Demonic Toys. There's like a handful, but specifically Puppet Master, I think, is the one that everybody, even if they've never seen the movies, they've heard of it.
Yeah, so look for that probably in late April or May, where we may do a full moon month. I know the 2 movies that I want to cover, which I'm really looking forward to talking about these.
Can't do Trancers. We're not doing.
No, that is a Future Imperfect in and of itself.
Yes.
I want to do Arcade and Bad Channels. Those are my 2.
Okay.
So anyway, guys, lots of good stuff.
Oh, is Arcade is this the virtual reality one, right?
Yeah, and it's really weird. Or maybe Dr. Mordred. I could do. So anyway, yeah, lots of cool stuff coming up on the site. Like I said, you've got a loose cannon where me and Ken talk about disability romance. We just didn't get a chance to post it in February because of schedules. We have our Star Trek year in review that'll be coming up on the site this week. As we discussed on the show, we are going to do a prototype talking about The Last of Us as its adaptation. I have been sent a request if they want us to cover The Last of Us on PC. That'll go to Ken whenever that comes in, and we're probably going to do something on what was the other thing I talked? Oh, right, Star Wars. It needs a report card. When Mando season 3 wraps up, we'll talk about how that's going to be put together. I'm sure we have some Marvel MCU stuff to talk about. JT gave me a bunch of Transformers comics over Christmas. I would like to bring back Sunday Funnies because I have read through about 30 or 40 issues of the IDW series. I know I'm years behind, but my God, this shit's awesome. So we'll be talking about all that and more right here on This Week in Geek as we prepare, because E3 is only a few months away.
Yeah, and we still need to do our pre-3 preview of what we're looking at, because right now the gaming landscape's kind of weird, and it would make for an interesting 30 or 40 minute discussion of what are we looking for this year.
Me, Resident Evil, Star Wars, and I don't know. I really don't know.
That's what I'm saying. I'm going to go into the archives and look up what we thought was announced a while ago that we haven't heard from in a while, and we can make it sort of like a what are we hoping to see this year now that E3 is back for the first time.
Yeah, so we will be talking about all that and more here on the site. I think you and Ken were going to do something at some point. So
yeah, that's probably what we're going to do is that.
Yeah, so so yeah, I may come in, share some of my thoughts, because I basically Alex is my pre-order page when it comes to gaming stuff. So yeah, we'll have a lot of good stuff coming up on the site. Don't worry about it, folks. I should have more toy reviews coming up in the next few weeks. Hopefully something really big's coming. I'm crossing my fingers on it. We'll wait and see whether I get it or not. So anyway, folks, for This Week in Geek, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike, the Birdman, saying be excellent to each other and be safe out there, folks, because hey, winter's still here and you got to drive safe. So anyway, folks, we'll be right here next week, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.